At the start, a ship that is later identified as the mega cruiser from Grudge Match flies past while a huge chunk of ice is loaded onto the ship. Aliens within discuss about the enormous ice block as Kevin hops down and reviews his victories. Vilgax has often come up in conversation. He touches the massive block of ice with his heat blast hand, melting it to reveal Vilgax's visage. When the aliens notice Vilgax, they retreat. Kevin claims that Ben, who uses the Omnitrix and has beaten them both in combat, is the object of their shared pursuit. The Tennysons take in the breathtaking views of the Niagara Falls while hoping for a good day. Gwen regrettably discovers Ben fiddling with the Omnitrix. Ben argues that it could be possible to exert more control over it. In response to his continued tinkering, the Omnitrix responds and begins spinning through various alien silhouettes on its own, leading Ben to believe that he must have broken it once again. Ben then speculates that maybe it is some kind of an upgrade and changes into update. He utters other alien names in awe and changes into gray matter and eventually Diamond Head. Diamond Head discovers that the Omnitrix responds to thoughts after transforming into XLR8, and he has thereby unlocked the Omnitrix's master control. XLR8 changes into Wild Vine, who then changes into Heat Blast. Wild Mutt, whom Heat Blast has transformed into, peers down into the sea. Max is asked by a visitor whether he may snap a photo of him and his wife. He runs away from Wild Mutt out of fear and ends up in the ocean, where Rip Jaws, who Wild Mutt has transformed into, jumps to his help. Rip Jaws rescues him from the ocean and changes into Stink Fly to fly him back on board the ship safely. Max and Gwen are astonished to see Rip Jaws change into Stink Fly. He remarks that Vilgax doesn't seem to be as tough as he does when they return to the mega cruiser. Kevin is instantly punched away by Vilgax, who tells him he made a mistake for saying what he said. Vilgax pulls Kevin out the window and tosses a pillar at him, propelling them both into the mega cruiser combat arena. Vilgax is said to have saved Kevin's life, although Vilgax has no loyalty to anybody. They collaborate to get the Omnitrix after learning that Kevin is well knowledgeable about Ben and the device. Stinkfly is perched in the woods while Gwen and Max unwind while eating a snack. He chuckles as he pours slime into Gwen's pudding. The fact that Stinkfly may remain an alien for as long as he pleases makes him pleased. Additionally, he discards the earnings from providing transportation to visitors. Although Gwen and Max are both highly aware of the new capability of the Omnitrix, they both assert that it may have unintended repercussions. Stinkfly is instructed by Max to change back into Ben and see him for a brief conversation. When Stinkfly changes into XLR8, XLR8 takes off with his pudding rather than paying attention to what he has to say. Vilgax examines Kevin's DNA back on board and reveals that Ben and Kevin have a similar genetic structure. Kevin may respond because of his impatience. They both acknowledge that they fell short against Ben, but Vilgax claims that his insight and Kevin's familiarity with Ben will give them the upper hand. Kevin wants to end the situation, but doing so requires that the Omnitrix be turned on. They discover the signal right away. The Tennysons keep having a good time as Max decides to shoot some photos. Wildvine chooses to jump into the ocean and bungee himself back up out of the blue. Ben continues to experiment with the alien appearances in a series of picture sessions, changing into Four Arms, Stinkfly, Wild Mutt, Gray Matter, and finally Heat Blast. Ben decides to test which alien can spew the greatest poop on a sky ride, and after changing into Diamond Head and Heat Blast, the test is passed. Heat Blast, Gwen, and Max are shocked to see Vilgax and Kevin still alive when they storm into the vehicle and seize him. By touching Heat Blast's Omnitrix emblem, Vilgax causes Heat Blast to revert to Ben. Ben then changes into Gray Matter and tries to flee, but Vilgax snags him. To escape Vilgax's grasp, Gray Matter changes into Diamond Head. Diamond Head turns into Stinkfly and is grabbed by Vilgax as he and Kevin tumble from the vehicle. Vilgax is thrown into Kevin by Stinkfly after changing into Four Arms. In order to rescue Gwen and Max, whose vehicle has collapsed, Four Arms changes into XLR8. Then, XLR8 changes into Stinkfly and takes flight. After landing, Stinkfly changes back into Ben. After that, Ben changes into XLR8 and flees to battle Kevin and Vilgax. Vilgax and Kevin attempt to huddle together on a rock, but Cannonbolt crashes down on them and smashes the rock. The Null Void Projector, which Max discovers after he unlocks a secret chamber in the Rust Bucket, was formerly believed to have been concealed within Métis Rushmore. Vilgax plans to use Max and Gwen as bait, and the villains arrive at the Rust Bucket as Kevin and Vilgax try to entice Cannonbolt out. Creating a Null Void gateway is Max. Vilgax pulls Diamond Head in after Kevin and Diamond Head are dragged in by Diamond Head when he first appears. The three are ambushed by Null Guardians in the Null Void. Diamond Head changes into XLR8, then flees. Vilgax boards a Null Guardian and takes command of it. Ben is the target of Max's pursuit as he dons his gear, but Gwen feels that she should pursue Ben because Max is the only one who is capable of using the projector. Heat Blast is soaring through the Null Void when Vilgax and Kevin, who are in charge of the Null Guardians, grab him and drag him into the mouth of one of the Null Guardians. Gray Matter, the transformed form of Heat Blast, is released from the Null Guardian's mouth. In order to escape the bad guys, Gray Matter changes into Cannon Bolt, who then transforms into XLR8 and runs across the floaty platforms before changing back into Stink Fly to fly over Vilgax and his Null Guardian. After knocking Vilgax and the Null Guardian to the ground with 4 arms, Stink Fly does a backflip and changes into Gray Matter so he may race with the Null Guardians. Gray Matter changes into Wilmut to avoid being hit by the Null Guardians and into Wild Vine to ram them into one another. Then Wild Vine changes back into Heat Blast to flee, but he is assaulted by the Null Guardians. Heat Blast flees from the Null Guardians after changing into Gray Matter, but while in the air, he is ambushed by another bunch. Gwen suits up on Earth and prepares to search for Ben in the Null Void. The Null Void projector can only keep the connection open for roughly 10 minutes, so Max gives Gwen a wristwatch that will guide her and Ben back to the gateway. A gauge on Gwen's watch will serve as a warning. Once it enters the danger zone, she must leave immediately. Max gives Gwen a blaster to protect herself against anyone other than Ben before she enters the vortex. Havoc beasts attack Gwen's jetpack right away, but she tosses a bomb at them to scare them off. Vilgax and Kevin arrive as Ben changes into Wild Mutt on a rock platform. To fly away, Wild Mutt changes into Gray Matter and eventually into Stink Fly. When the Null Void projector malfunctions on Earth, Max advises Gwen to leave. Stink Fly immediately runs into Gwen and is pleased to see her. When a thing from the Null Void attempts to consume them, they flee, but Kevin manages to take hold of Gwen before they can exit through the portal. To make matters worse, they are now encircled. Stink Fly is forced to give up and turn back into Ben in order to rescue Gwen by landing on a platform. Ben thinks it will be a simple trade when he gives Vilgax and Kevin the Omnitrix in exchange for Gwen. However, Kevin quickly discards Gwen, pins Ben down, and ferociously drives a device into the ground above Ben's arm, ripping the Omnitrix from Ben's wrist and depositing it in a sphere. Vilgax claims that it will be simple to break the code, notwithstanding Ben's claims that he zeroed the master control. Vilgax chases after Kevin as he flees with the Omnitrix. Ben and Gwen follow them while using Gwen's jetpack. While Gwen takes the Omnitrix, Kevin attacks Vilgax as the portal starts to collapse. Ben orders Gwen to remove the portal since Vilgax and Kevin are blocking it. Ben jumps down when she tosses something away and urges Gwen to go. As soon as she does, Ben leaps over Kevin and exits the portal. Unfortunately, Ben fears he will never retrieve the Omnitrix since it seems to have been lost in the Null Void. He ends by expressing regret for his past conceit and misuse of his authority. Gwen asserts that she has a gift for Ben. Nevertheless, Ben claims he witnessed Gwen throw away the container that contained the Omnitrix. Ben may be stupid enough to throw away the Omnitrix, but Gwen claims that she is not. Vilgax and Kevin are pursuing the fake that Gwen tossed, which turns out to be one of Gwen's explosives. Back in the Null Void, Vilgax catches it, and when he realizes that he and Kevin are stuck within for all time, it bursts, leading to their enraged assault by one of the creatures of the Null Void. Max informs Ben that he owes Gwen a great deal of gratitude, as Ben puts the Omnitrix back on, but Ben has other plans. Revenge. To avenge Gwen, he attempts to turn into Stink Fly or Wild Vine, but instead switches into Gray Matter and recalls that he zeroed out the master control. The story comes to a conclusion as Gwen and Max laugh about it.